We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Amid Beis in Meseches Zevachim. This is Zevachim Daf 50b. On the previous summit, the Gemara asked, can something that is learned from Gzeira Shaveh teach through Gzeira Shaveh? And on the previous summit, the Gemara brought a brisa which said that by the power of the Kohen Gadol, it is burned al yedei nituach through cutting it up. That was learned from Gzeira Shaveh, from Ola. And the Gemara now is in the middle of bringing another brisa. The brisa says that it says over here, we'll see Rashi in a moment in terms of what that means, but it says over here, or ubasar uperish, v'nemar lahalon, and it says further on, or ubasar uperish. It says or ubasar uperish. That's our second Gzeira Shaveh. And we learn from there, ma'alahalan al yedei nituach, just like over there, it's through cutting it up, shalo behefshit, but not with flaying. You don't flay the skin. Afkan, so too over here, al yedei nituach, it's through cutting it up, shalo behefshit, but not flaying the skin. And Rashi explains, v'nemar lahalan, it says further on, bepar kohen Mashiach, that's by the power of the Kohen Gadol. V'nemar kan, and it says over here, bepar v'soyer shal yom ha'kippurim. Kan over here refers to the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur. It says v'yas par hachatos, v'yas hasir hachatos, v'yas orosam v'yas besarim. And so we make a Gzeira Shaveh that ma'alahalan bepar kohen Mashiach, just like over there, by the power of the Kohen Gadol al yedei nituach, it's through cutting it up, di'alfinan m'Gzeira Shaveh. That we learn from a Gzeira Shaveh, me'ola, from Ola, and so then we do a Gzeira Shaveh to a Gzeira. Shows that something that is learned from a Gzeira Shaveh can in fact teach through a Gzeira Shaveh. And the Gemara continues and asks, Davar halam Gzeira Shaveh, something that is learned from a Gzeira Shaveh, ma'u sheyelamid bekal v'chomer, can it teach a kal v'chomer? And the Gemara says to that kal v'chomer, we can make the following kal v'chomer. Uma she'eno melamid behekesh, if something learned from a hekesh can't teach through a hekesh, Rava imid Ravina, we said that earlier, either from Rava or from Ravina. So if it's true, melamed bekal v'chomer, but that hekesh which can't teach through a hekesh, that ride from a hekesh which cannot teach through a hekesh is able to teach through a kal v'chomer. And we said that midatana devei Rabbi Yishmael. We learned that from the Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael. So when it comes to a Gzeira Shaveh, hamelamedes behekesh, which is able to teach through a hekesh, and we said that midar Reb Papa. We said that from Reb Papa, eino din shetalamed bekal. Isn't it logical to say that it can teach through a kal v'chomer? The Gemara says hanichol islay de Reb Papa. That works if we hold of Reb Papa. Again, that we hold of Reb Papa, that it medes behekesh. But elalaman de leslay de Reb Papa, but the one who doesn't hold of Reb Papa, ma'imar, what are we going to say? Again, what's the answer to this question? Something learned from a Gzeira Shaveh, teach through a kal v'chomer. Ela kal v'chomer, rather we make the following kal v'chomer. Uma hekin melamed behekesh, if a hekesh which cannot teach through a hekesh, again, imi de Rava, either from Rava before or from Ravina before, melamed bekal v'chomer, mi de Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, is to teach through a kal v'chomer from the Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael. So Gzeira Shaveh hamilamed Shaveh chaverta midarami bar Chama, Gzeira Shaveh which is able to teach through a Gzeira Shaveh like it from Rami bar Chama, eino din shetalamed bekal v'chomer. Isn't it logical to say that it can teach through a kal v'chomer? And the Gemara continues, Davar hal Gzeira Shaveh, something that is learned from a Gzeira Shaveh, ma'u sheyilamid bebinyanav, is it able to teach binyanav through a mamotzinu, like we find over here, so too over here? And the Gemara says, the Gemara leaves that as a question. Davar halamid bekal v'chomer, something that is learned from a kal v'chomer, ma'u sheyilamid behekesh, is it able to teach through a hekesh? And the Gemara says to that kal v'chomer, we can make the following kal v'chomer. Uma Gzeira Shaveh she'eno lemeda behekesha, if a Gzeira Shaveh which cannot be learned from a hekesh, mid Rabbi Yochanan, that we learn from Rabbi Yochanan, but melamed behekesh, but it can teach through a hekesh, midar Reb Papa, from Reb Papa. So kal v'chomer halamid mehekesh, a kal v'chomer which can be learned from a hekesh, midar Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, from the Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, eino din sheyilamed behekesh. Isn't it logical that it should teach through a hekesh? Again, the Gemara says hanichol aman de islay de Reb Papa. That works according to the one who holds of Reb Papa. Elul aman de leslay de Reb Papa ma'ikol ameimar. But one who does not hold of Reb Papa, what are we going to say? And the Gemara says take. The Gemara leaves that as a question. And the Gemara continues, Davar halamid bekal v'chomer, something learned from a kal, ma'u sheyilamid b'Gzeira Shaveh, is it able to teach through a Gzeira Shaveh? And the Gemara says to that kal, you can make the following kal v'chomer. Uma Gzeira Shaveh she'ena lemeda behekesha, if a Gzeira Shaveh is not able to be learned from a hekesh, mid Rabbi Yochanan, from Rabbi Yochanan, melamid b'Gzeira Shaveh mid Rami bar Chama, but it is able to teach through a Gzeira Shaveh from Rami bar Chama. So kal v'chomer halamid behekesh, a kal v'chomer which is learned from a hekesh, mid the Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, from the Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, eino din shetalamid b'Gzeira Shaveh. Isn't it logical that it should be able to Gzeira Shaveh? And the Gemara continues, Davar halamid bekal v'chomer, ma'u sheyilamid bekal v'chomer, something learned from a kal v'chomer, can it teach through a kal v'chomer? And the Gemara says to that, kal v'chomer, following kal v'chomer. Uma Gzeira Shaveh she'ena lemeda behekesh mid Rabbi Yochanan, if a Gzeira Shaveh not learn from a hekesh from Rabbi Yochanan, Melamed b'kal v'chomer, it can teach a kal v'chomer, Keda Amrin, as we said, so kal v'chomer, halamed me hekesh, which is learned from a hekesh, midatana deveri b'shmal, from the Tana deveri b'shmal, eino din she'ilamed b'kal v'chomer, isn't it logical that it should be able to teach through a kal v'chomer? And the Gemara continues in comments, v'zeu kal v'chomer ben kal v'chomer, this is a kal v'chomer, the son of a kal v'chomer, meaning it's derived from a kal v'chomer. The Gemara asks, what do you mean it's a ben kal v'chomer, ben beno shel kal v'chomer? It's actually like the grandson of a kal v'chomer. It's double derived. We'll see Rashi in a moment. But the Gemara continues, ela kal v'chomer, rather make the following kal v'chomer. Uma hekesh ein olamed behekesh of a hekesh, which cannot be learned from a hekesh, imi derava, imi deravina, either from Rava or Ravina, melamed b'kal v'chomer, it can teach through a kal v'chomer, midatana deveri b'shmal, from the Tana deveri b'shmal, kal v'chomer, halamed mehekesh, a kal v'chomer, which is learned from a hekesh, midatani deveri b'shmal, from the Tana deveri b'shmal, eino din shilamed b'kal v'chomer, isn't it logical that it can teach through a kal v'chomer? V'zeh kal v'chomer ben kal v'chomer, and this is a kal v'chomer, the son of a kal v'chomer. And Rashi explains, V'zeu kal v'chomer ben kal v'chomer, this is a kal v'chomer, the son of a kal v'chomer. Kal v'chomer zesh anu mevi'in kan, the kal v'chomer that we're bringing over here. L'darsho b'torah, to darshan this kal v'chomer, l'lamed kal v'chomer mi kal v'chomer, to teach a kal v'chomer from a kal v'chomer. Anu l'meidin oso midavar sha'af hu lo lamdanuhu ela b'kal v'chomer, we're learning it from something which is learned from a kal v'chomer. D'hamaisi lam gzera shava, because what's the source? We're bringing this from gzera shava hamilamedis b'kal v'chomer, that gzera shava can teach through a kal v'chomer. V'hi gufa, and that concept itself, lo yadinan lo el al yadei kal v'chomer. We only know that through a kal v'chomer. To the kal v'chomer yalfinan lo el, because that's learned out through a kal v'chomer earlier. That's what it means, a kal v'chomer ben kal v'chomer. And Rashi continues, Uparchinon, and then the Gemara asks, Ben beno shel kal v'chomer. It's not a kal v'chomer ben kal v'chomer, it's actually a kal v'chomer ben beno shel kal v'chomer. It's like the grandson of a kal v'chomer. Meaning to say, Sha'afilu hayinu l'meidin oso midavar shelo lamdanu al yedei kal v'chomer. Even if we would learn it from something which wasn't learned through a kal v'chomer, but hu haya atzmo ben kal v'chomer, but it itself, by itself, is already a ben kal v'chomer. Why? Sharei bekal v'chomer anu l'meidin oso k'da amrin la'el bekal v'chomer ma gzera shava, because we're learning the answer to our question, again, of whether a kal v'chomer can teach a kal v'chomer, we're learning that from a kal v'chomer. So achshav now, sha'af gezerah shava, that even the gezerah shava sha'anu l'meidin oso mimenu l'dorsha b'torah, that we're learning from that gezerah shava, af hilo lamda shetilmed b'kal v'chomer elami kal v'chomer, that itself we're learning that it teaches a kal v'chomer through a kal v'chomer. So nimtza sha'ata mevi midas kal v'chomer b'torah, it comes out that you're learning a kal v'chomer in the Torah, mikoach shnei kalin v'chamurin, from two kal v'chomers. V'havalei beno shel kal v'chomer u ben beno shel kal v'chomer. That actually makes it the son of a kal v'chomer, the grandson of a kal v'chomer. V'dilma kuli hai leslan l'meilef u'mezel. Maybe so far we cannot go. We can't learn the kal v'chomers in that fashion. And Rashi continues, then the Gemara said, Ela lo tirbe migzera shava hamilamedis b'kal v'chomer dihiguva mikal v'chomer asilon. Don't learn it from gzera shava that teaches through a kal v'chomer, which itself is learned from a kal v'chomer, because again, that's what makes the extra kal v'chomer in the step. Ela yolif lei me hekesh, rather learn it from a hekesh hamilamed b'kal v'chomer. The hekesh also can teach through a kal v'chomer. Denafka lon mi masnisa the Tani deveri b'shmal. We learned that earlier from the Bryce of Tani deveri b'shmal. The Gemara gamar lo the davar hamilamed b'hekesh choser malamed b'kal v'chomer. Again, the Gemara said that it's something that teaches through something that's learned through a hekesh can teach through a kal v'chomer. V'hashlo have ela kal v'chomer ben kal v'chomer. Once you're learning from hekesh, which itself wasn't learned from a kal v'chomer, so now it just becomes a kal v'chomer ben kal v'chomer ki inoch de le'el de gzera shava melamedus b'kal v'chomer mi kal v'chomer, like those we had earlier that a gzera shava teaches through a kal v'chomer from a kal v'chomer. And the Gemara continues, Davar halamid b'kal v'chomer. Let's say you have something that is derived from a kal v'chomer. Ma'u sheyilmud b'binyanav. Is it able to teach through a binyanav? And the Gemara says to that, Omer Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Tashma, come and hear a proof from the following Mishnah. This is a Mishnah later on. Molak v'nimsas treifa. Let's say the Kohen does the malika. Again, that's using the fingernail on the bird. Instead of doing a shchita on the bird offering, you do malika. But then it turns out that this bird is a treifa. It had a mortal wound. It's not good for a carbon. So the question is, does the malika take it away from having the tumas nevela? This is called the tumas nivlas of tahar. If you have a nevela of an of tahar, a nevela of a kosher bird, so it has a certain tumah, it's called tumah bebeis habliya. But in any case, the question is, does malika undo that tumah? And that's a machlokas tanoim. Rabbi Meir says, eino metama bebeis habliya. It's not considered a nevela. It doesn't have the tumas bebeis habliya. Rabbi Yehuda Omer metama bebeis habliya. Rabbi Yehuda says that it is metama bebeis habliya. It is considered a nevela in such a situation. The malika doesn't undo that. And the Gemara continues, the Mishnah continues, Amar Rabbi Meir says, Kal v'chomer, we can make the following Kal v'chomer. Uman nivlas behema, when it comes to the nevela, the carcass of a behema, shemetama b'maga uv'masa, there, it conveys tumah through touching, through carrying. Shchitasa mitaheres treifasa mitumasa. But if you slaughter it, it purifies that treifa from conveying that tumah. So nevelas oaf, when it comes to the nevela of a bird, she'ein mitame b'maga uv'masa, there you don't have tumas maga and masa, you don't have tumah of touching and of carrying. Eino din shetei shchitasa mitaheres treifasa mitumasa. Certainly the shchita should purify the treifa from having that tumah. That's by shchita, not malika. And then we're going to do the ma'amotzinu. So that was first the kal v'chomer, and now a ma'amotzinu. Ma'amotzinu b'shchita. Now, what do we find by shchita that it prepares it, it allows it to be eaten? And Rashi explains, mitama bebeis habliya, it has the tumas beis habliya, kedin nivlas oftar, that's the tumah of the nevela of an oftar, the carcass of a kosher bird, de'ein malikas treifa bekachim, and the idea over here is that the malika of a treifa by kachim, it's not mitaheres midei nevela, it doesn't purify it from that tumas nevela. V'hu adinami l'shochet of chulin treifa mitama l'Reb Yehuda, and it would also be true, let's say a person would slaughter a bird that was chulin, that wasn't a carbon, that was a treifa, it would be mitame according to Rabbi Yehuda. He would treat that the same way. And Rashi summarizes, shalosh machlokas bedavar, this is really a three-way machlokas. Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir, achas shchitas of shal chulin, whether you slaughter a bird that's chulin, v'achas malika bekachim, or whether it's malika by a bird that's a carbon, mitaharos treifasim midei nevela, it purifies, it's not going to have that tomas nevela according to Rabbi Meir in both scenarios. Rabbi Yehuda, now according to Rabbi Yehuda, zu v'zu eina mitaris. In both cases, it's not going to purify. Rabbi Yossi, now according to Rabbi Yossi, he makes a distinction. Shchita mitaharis, shchita will purify, v'lo malika, not malika. V'chein mefarsh b'Meseches taharos b'perek shlosh esrei dvarim. This is explained in Meseches taharos. And Rashi continues, shchitasa mitaharis treifasa mitumasa. The slaughtering is mitaher, that treifa from tumah. Kenamrinan b'ha'or v'harotiv, like we say in ha'or v'harotiv, in chulin v'chiyamas min ha'behema, again talking about an animal. Mixas behema mitama, mixas behema ena mitama. Some of behema is tamei, some is not tamei. Ve'ezu, and which one? Zu treifa sheshachot. Again, if you have a treifa that you slaughtered, it's metaheres. There you don't have the tumah. And so then we say nivlas of eno mitami b'magu v'masa. The nevela of an oaf doesn't have that tumas mag and masa mibachutz, from the outside. Again, there's only tumah in the beis habliya, that's in the throat. Techsiv l'tamava ein lach elo ha'amur ba achila v'lo maga u'masa. It's only through achila. It's not through maga and masa. You don't have that maga and masa tumah. So eino din shetei shchitasa mitaheres treifasa mitumasa. Isn't it logical to say that the shchita should be mitaher? V'hashta dekai malon shchita de mitaheres bechulin mikal v'chomer. Now we have this idea that shchita purifies when the bird is chulin. That's from that kal v'chomer. Hadra umigmara amalika dekachim bebinyanav. Now we're going to learn to malika through a binyanav. Mamotzinu v'shchita shemechasheres lechol bechulin. We find that shchita which prepares it, renders it fit to be eaten by chulin, to be eaten as a kosher kosher food. Umitaheres treifasa mitumasa. And again we say that it purifies in terms of that tumas nevela. Af malika, so too when it comes to malika. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Aleph Amud Aleph.